I recently started playing Mordheim, and something that I ran into quite quickly was the need to paint up and add new people to my warband really quickly. So in this video I'm going to show you how I use speed paints to get models done in a good amount of time, 15 to 20 minutes. Here we're starting with a nice and bright undercoat, a off-white, a skeleton bone, and then we're going to start by adding some zealot yellow. The colour scheme that I'm going for is Averlander. I think the yellow and black looks really nice, but you could use a similar technique for a variety of different mercenary warbands for Mordheim, or use it for things like state troops in Fantasy in the old world as well. The nice thing about speed paints is they can give you this really vibrant colour and are very economical in terms of time. Here you can see me starting to put the yellow on. I want to go for a crosshatch pattern overall, so yellow and black in quadrants, and so I've been careful to draw a straight line on the back of his trousers, his tunic there. A trick to using speed paints as well is making sure you have enough paint on the brush. As you can see, that lets it pool into the recesses and give you a nice bit of contrast. So I've finished the bottom half, now going to move up to the top, again making sure we have plenty of that yellow on our brush and just filling in the left hand side of his torso. Something to bear in mind is to make sure that you're not letting too much speed paint pool in there, so here you can see me just picking up areas where I think there's a little bit excess paint. I also like speed paints because they go on, their consistency is really nice, they apply very nicely. And I'm using a big old brush to make sure that I have plenty of it available in the brush itself. You'll notice we're aiming for speed here, we want to be really economical, so I'm not going to worry too much about getting every bit of his left torso done. Just want to make sure that enough is yellow and covered. And again, just wicking away some of that excess speed paint that was running along this guy's belt. So we're now going to move to our second colour, our black. For this I'm using Citadel's Contrast Black Legion. Again, like using a contrast for this, I like using Black Legion in general, to be honest. It has it flows really well off the brush, which I like. So, with the yellow, it doesn't matter too much if you overspill. Yellow is very easy to cover over. The black, not so much. So being very careful here as we join up to the section that we painted yellow earlier. And then we can be a bit faster on the more clear patches. Moving on to his front, just doing the same again, making sure that we don't overspill too much onto either the shield or the sword. It's not the end of the world if we do, but black can be a bit of a pain to clear up. Tricky bit here. There's a bit of fabric that's showing through his belt straps. Going to try our best, just using the tip of our brush, having a little bit less paint on the brush as well. And doing the same again from the front. Always important to paint yourself while you're painting miniatures. But what I was doing there was making sure that I had a nice tip on the brush. Now painting the right hand side of his torso, again just being really careful as we go up to that line with that yellow, and then being a little bit quicker as we move away from it. And there we have the black and white more or less done. The black and yellow even. So you can see that this model's already starting to come together. Just keep an eye out, see if there's any bits that need touching up. Generally for me, I find I miss things that are on the underside of models, so just touching a little bit of that up there. Now we're going to move on to our other colours. The next one I'm going to put on this guy is hardened leather. So using that for our browns. Again, this is a speed paint. Make sure that we have enough out. And then starting to apply it to his shoes and his belt. I find with this brown in particular that you really do have to make sure that you've got a good amount of it on your brush. You can see I just had to go back and pick up a little bit more. Otherwise the effect isn't as good. And different speed paints behave in slightly different ways. The more you use them, the more you'll get familiar to them. I'm sure the same is for same goes for contrasts as well. So just working our way around, taking our time, especially trying to make sure we don't overspill onto the yellow, because that will be visible. We can be a little bit less careful with the black, but again trying to be neat. Don't forget also the back of this guy's shield. It's not necessarily going to be the highlight of this guy, but we want to make sure that it's filled in as much as we can. Looking at the top of the shield, I think I'm going to struggle to get a brush in there to get a good effect. So given that we're focusing on speed and efficiency, we're going to leave that. After we've touched up the back of the shield, going to go onto the belt, have switched down to a slightly smaller brush for this, just for that extra control. We had a little bit of yellow and black overspill onto the belt straps before. If you really wanted, you could go and touch those back up with an off-white. I'm not going to bother. It's really not going to make that much of a difference if there are any little bits of overlap. And then next going to move on to the areas of skin. There's not that much exposed skin on this man, mostly just his face and his hand. Again, want to make sure we've got a decent amount of speed paint to work with, that we get a decent amount of it on our brush, and then we're just going to cover those areas. You'll notice we're not going to bother trying to go for his left hand. It's safely tucked away behind the shield. You're really going to have to look at this model from a strange angle in order to view that. And so in the interest of time, we're going to skip that entirely. What we will do, however, is make sure that we've got the hand covered nicely. So that's just looking at all different angles, moving that paint around. And then moving on to our silver, I'm going to use polished silver. Again, a speed paint. Really like this paint, I think the coverage is really nice. Has a good amount of pigment in it as well. Though perhaps not as much contrast as some of the other speed paints. So, things we need to paint silver in this guy is his mail that he's wearing around his neck, his helmet, and then moving on to his sword as well. So just working our way around there. With the silver again, because it does have good coverage, do have to be a bit more careful to make sure it doesn't go on any other bits. That is especially true for the yellow. And here with the sword, could paint the handle in a different colour. Gonna do it all silver for now, making sure that we cover the back facing side of the sword as well. And being really careful around this guy's hand. Do some final touch-ups with the silver around his face. Trying our best not to overspill into the flesh tone of his actual face. And then we're going to move on to the shield. I'm going to switch to using some more traditional paints here, starting by using Averlander Sunset, a base paint. And we're just going to whack that all over the shield to begin with and give us a nice base coat to work off of. In addition to the front, make sure that you're getting a decent amount of yellow around the edges of the shield. That'll make it look nice and tidy and help cover any overspill that we got from any other layers that we were painting earlier. And like this brown you can see us going over now. So I could leave this yellow as a yellow shield, but to add a little bit of interest, I'm going to spend some time to add in a quartered pattern again. So for this, using the base Abaddon Black, again from Citadel. And what I'm going to do here is really take my time and start drawing in our quartered pattern. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to try and make this line reasonably straight and then fill in the rest of that quadrant. If you don't feel comfortable or confident doing this kind of pattern, some sort of transfer whacked straight onto the shield would look great as well. And then turning our man over and finishing the quadrant on the opposite corner. So again, really taking time with this on the initial line and then being a little bit faster as we just block in the colour to the rest of that space. Nearly there, just going over those quadrants again to make sure that they're nice and black. And then our guy is nearly done. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more painting, please like and subscribe. Let me know what colour you paint your mercenaries or state troops in, and what you'd like to see next.